Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine, and today I want to share with you the books and resources we used for our Colonial America unit study. This was a fairly short unit study considering that most of our units end up lasting several weeks or even months, and so I have more resources here than what we actually use because some of these things we only used portions of them or one project from an activity book. So I'm going to share with you everything that we got through, what we liked, what we didn't like, and I also want to share with you the projects that we did. We had one major project for this unit, and that was a fall feast or a colonial feast where we did some candle dipping and we churned butter and we did some stitching. Of course, we had our weaving project and we also dyed yarn and we used that yarn for our weaving projects. So I'm going to show you some of those projects a little bit later on in this video. So let me dive into all of these books here and tell you what we liked and what we got through and what we didn't get through. So the first book I want to show you is called American History Stories, and this was my intended read aloud for this unit, and we barely read any of it. I want to say we only read maybe 2 or 3 chapters before I realized that it wasn't going to work super well with the other materials that we had and all the other reading aloud that I was going to do, as well as all the other projects. And so even though we have 4 volumes for this series, and even though we bought it the last time we did this unit study a few years ago, we actually didn't make our way through it as well as I thought we would. In general, I really don't mind some of the older texts. I believe this one was written, about 100 or so years ago in 1908. And for a lot of resources, I find them to be really rich and still current. But in some cases, I find that some of the opinions of the era show through in the work, and so sometimes you kind of have to pick and choose or read through it and just discuss some things with your children. Because we read so little of this, I didn't run into any of those kinds of things, but I was sensitive of those things just considering that there are a lot of things related to the Native American Indian tribes that obviously were here in this country before it was settled. The fact that this area didn't need to be discovered, right? Because it was already settled by Indigenous people. So there's a lot of those things that we just wanted to be really sensitive about when we were discussing this unit. Okay, the next book I want to share with you is called Colonial Kids, and this is one of 3 activity books that I pulled for these units, and I really like the activity books by Lori Carlson. I've done a ton of tutorials based on these books. The reason why I like them so much is because they are super simple. I find them to be really educational, and you probably can do them with materials that you already have around your house. The thing that I like to do is sometimes upgrade the projects with some fancier materials or just make them out of materials that I want to keep for longer. So you can do these really simply with things that you probably aren't, they're not going to become heirlooms. They're not going to be things that you want to keep forever. And then if you want to make them a little bit fancier, you certainly can do that. And so I really enjoy this book quite a bit. We also have Great Colonial America projects. And the reason why I like this one is because it comes with so much content along with the projects, but the projects tend to be a little bit more intense, a little bit more involved. There are some projects in here that are pretty simple to do. And also there are going to be a lot of projects that are repeats between the different books that we have. And so while we did do candle dipping and we did our weaving and knitting and those kinds of projects, you're going to find those repeated often in a lot of these different books. Colonial Days, this is one activity book that we just haven't used that much. I flagged a lot of projects that we wanted to do, but we just didn't get to any original projects that were in this book that we couldn't find in other books. So anything that we did in this book, it's because it was in other books as well. So if this was the only activity book that you had, I think that it would be fine. You would get a lot of ideas from it. And also I like that the way that it's set up because it's according to the seasons. And that's just a unique way to do an activity book versus the other activity books that I have. The Adventurous Life of Miles Standish. I actually can't remember if I shared this with you in how we put together this unit study. It was definitely in the very first video series of our American history units from a few years ago. And those videos, as well as all the videos moving forward, are all in one huge playlist. If you are interested in seeing how we put together these multiple unit studies and all the projects that we did, you can find that link down in the description box below. And you can also head over to my website at pepperandpine.com for a blog post that accompanies this video, and it's going to have like all the videos and all the projects that we did and links to the books that we've used and all kinds of stuff. So if you want to check that out, that link is also in the description box below. So since we had read this book the last time we did this unit, I did not intend to do it as a read aloud, but what ended up happening was that my son ended up reading this as his assigned reading, and that was unexpected because I had some other things for him to read, and he ended up not reading one of the books that I thought that he was going to end up reading, and he read this one instead. We did use this book for our chalk drawing inspiration both times we did this unit. You can see it got quite dirty this last time. I copied this picture here for our chalk drawing, and the last time we did this unit we used this drawing right here, which is absolutely spectacular. So I have a chalk drawing on both of those. Don't know much about the Pilgrims. We did not read through this book. This is like a fun little book that you could use for your opening activities. If you wanted to include some work prior to starting your unit for the day, I think this book would be a really great addition. You could just read a couple of passages or questions, and that would kind of set the stage for your unit. But we ended up not reading this one this time around. For our opening activities, we did the Professor Noggins Explorers game. Now, I don't know if they have one for the Colonial America, but I know that they have it for the Revolutionary War and that time period, and so we do have that one for our other unit, but this is the one that we used this time around. Even though it didn't really quite fit with Colonial America, it was a nice opening activity game that in some ways could relate. So this card game is really fantastic. They have them for so many different subject areas. They have an illustration on the front and on the back side. There are two sets of questions, an easy set and a hard set. And the way that we like to play this game is to start off with the easy set. And because it's trivia based, eventually you're going to memorize all of the answers. And so at that point, we move into the hard set. Or if we feel like we really understand the information pretty well and it's towards the end of the unit, then we like to challenge ourselves with the hard questions. Or if I feel I know the information more than my children and we want to even out the playing field, then I'll do the hard questions and they will do the easy questions. It does come with a dice, but sometimes we'll just play it where we'll just start with the first question for the first round, and the second round we'll go through the second question and so on and so forth that way. But it does come with a dice with just three numbers on them. This is something that I did not share with you while putting together this unit study. I got this as a hand-me-down just recently after our units were complete, and this is the History Pockets Colonial America. Now, I do have this for a variety of different subject areas, but we rarely use these the way that they are intended. It's just not our style of homeschooling, but what I really, really like about these books is that this is a great way to get some hands-on projects. If you don't want to do extra work and preparing the projects, it comes with everything you need in order to put together some really nice lap books or main lesson books. And if you want to upgrade your projects the way I typically do, then this becomes fantastic inspiration for projects that you can do. So though we didn't use this book, I do want to show it to you in case this is something that you want to add to your unit study. Colonial America. This book, I only used one section, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get through the whole thing. It's a great book with lots of different worksheets and activities, and it even comes with this really great map here of Williamsburg. And the only thing that we used, And there could have been, if this was a longer unit, I would have used this a lot more, because while I don't care for worksheets, because we do so few of them in our homeschool, it's kind of a novelty and my kids get all excited about them. And so we don't typically use them, but if I needed, we're homeschooling more than one child, and there are sometimes lessons that aren't going to suit every person in the homeschool. And so it's nice to have some work that you can assign to one of your children while you're working with another child. And having a book like this is a great way to go, because some of the worksheets involved reading certain passages first and then filling in the worksheet. So the only one that we did was Colonial coins, but honestly, I probably should have added Colonial prices too, because that would have been really interesting. So all I did was I photocopied the worksheet so that we could use this again. And I also had these historical replica coins, and I thought that would be super cool to have like the actual coin along with the worksheet, but it turned out that none of them actually were the same. So these were all different coins than the ones that we had. So much for that, although I thought the idea was pretty cool. And it turns out that we didn't actually use these coins quite as much as I thought we would. I thought they were super cool. I think it's a really great addition to a unit, and I'm super sad that for this unit and the American Revolution unit and the first time we did this unit a few years ago, these just weren't hits. But I'm glad to have them. We'll still have them. I would still recommend them. They just didn't go over so well in our homeschool. Okay, so I'm just going to stick this back in here. This is not something that I would really keep. Most of the stuff that we would keep are the projects as well as the main lesson book, which I'm going to show you in a minute. But again, this was a nice addition. I thought that it was really well done. The Mayflower, 1620, A New Look at a Pilgrim Voyage. This is a really interesting book in the sense that you have a bunch of these photographs. So this is a reenactment of what the voyage might have been like for these passengers. And so you get a really interesting take on it. Now, we did not end up getting enough time to read this book this time around. We did read it the first time we did this unit. It was okay, if I remember. I'm sorry that I can't speak more deeply about this book, but I do have review videos for our other history unit studies that you can check out. But if you're looking for something that's going to just be about the Mayflower and have a more realistic view on it, because obviously you wouldn't have the photographs from back then this might be a nice addition to your unit. I do really, really love illustrations, but because I go for books that are illustrated more than books that have photographs, for me it's nice to kind of balance that out and have a few books that have some photographs in it. You Wouldn't Want to Be an American Colonist. Now, I love these books. I find them to be kind of whimsical and kind of fun to read. I find the content to be really well done. And for the most part, I think that it's enough content. Now, sometimes if we're diving into a unit and we're really getting into something, then I find that this is not going to be a great resource in that respect. But if you just need a refresher, or you just need a general amount of information for a particular topic, then I find these books to be really great. Plus, they've got super fun illustrations. What I've noticed recently, though, is that my children aren't sitting next to me to look at the illustrations as much as they used to. And so sometimes books like this just don't have the same kind of presence because they're not enjoying the illustrations. I'm enjoying them more than they are. But they are still listening, which is great because it's written in a really easy format, so it's really easy to understand. The New Americans, Colonial Times. This is the American Story series. I really, really like this series. This will be the closest to a textbook other than the History of Us for this unit. So this is definitely more textbook-ish like, but still I would consider this a living book and not a textbook. And for a younger student, say up till about 5th to 7th grade, maybe, or maybe 7th or 8th grade, then, or maybe 6th grade, then I would put this as an awesome alternative to having a textbook. So this is going to go through the details that I feel like a textbook would go through. However, I find the illustrations to be super awesome, really captivating, really well done. and the information just flows so well. I really, really like this series of books. The only downside, and this is not really a downside on the book series itself, it's really just a downside on history itself, is that it's filled with a lot of dates and people and wars and situations where it just can get a little bit confusing, right? And so having a book like this or any other book where you're trying to take in that much information, it can get a little bit overwhelming. So the way that we would read these books is we would read them over several days, and we would just read enough until we felt we were saturated, and then we would break it up with some picture books. So I still highly recommend this series. I love the illustrations. I like the way it's written, even though it's not completely a storybook, but it has almost that feel. It's still packed with information, but I still really enjoy them. Okay, The Pilgrims of Plymouth. I was super surprised how much I liked this book. In the last minute, I pulled this out, or I thought, oh, we're not going to get to this book, so I'm not even going to worry about it. Or I simply hadn't pulled it out. I honestly can't remember. Hadn't pulled it out when I was putting this unit together, because we probably pulled only about half of the materials that we have for all of these units, because these were just going to be short, lightning round type of units. We're going to just do these really quickly. And because we have so many other materials to read through, I didn't want to make this so heavy and us not be able to get through it, or in some cases have such redundant information that it becomes just really laborious to get through the text. However, I found this book to be fabulous. And though the illustrations aren't the things that I would go for, I thought that they fit the book really well. And it was, for me, almost a page turner. Moving on, I want to show you one more book that we use, and this was The History of Us by Joy Hakim, and there are about 10 volumes, and I pulled volume number 2 and volume number 3 for my son to read through. This was independent reading for him, and this is where he drew his content for his main lesson book. And his main lesson book had drawings, illustrations, and entries based on this book, and so all he had to do was write a paragraph for every chapter that he read. But it ends up that there are a lot of chapters in this book, which actually is pretty good, because it means that you're never reading too much information at one time. So the chapters are really short, which I find to be a positive thing. There's a ton of captions and illustrations, and so if you just look at the content for each chapter, it's not too much. And so I think that makes it really easy bite-sized bits for a student to get through. But it meant that there was a lot more writing for my son, because he was writing a paragraph for every chapter. So eventually he ended up writing much less. I think just maybe 2 or 3 sentences. He did use a fountain pen for his narrations, and these are new fountain pens for us. They have a wooden barrel, and then you can just unscrew that, and you have your place for your ink. But then you also, if you look at the top part here, it's rubbered, and it also has 3 indentations here so that you can rest your fingers on and have the correct hand placement so that you can write correctly. So I really do appreciate these ones versus the other fountain pens that we have. But throughout the whole process, my son's handwriting got worse and worse as the unit trailed on. So this main lesson book was for Colonial America, the American Revolution time period unit study, as well as the Lewis and Clark expedition and the Western movement. So this main lesson book was for all 3 of those units, and he read all through this book, and I also had wanted him to read through volume 3, but he wasn't able to get through that. So it was just too much information. It was just too many resources, just not enough time. All right, let me show you the projects that my children did. The first one here is a weaving project that my son did, and this is a bag that he did his weaving with, and I made our own DIY loom for this, and then we made a twizzle here so that he can actually wear it, and it's awesome. It took a really long time to finish, but what's interesting is that it took him like maybe 2 weeks to do about this much. And then it took him like 3 weeks to do this much because it got so difficult at the end, and I finally helped him with the last little bit. So this was our major project for this unit. Now, we used yarn that came with the, we used yarn that was part of a loom kit. And this is what it looks like. It's by Harrisville Designs. We also have the Harrisville loom, which I'm going to show you in a minute, that my daughter used. But it comes with these different packets of yarn that's been pre-selected to kind of coordinate. And the one that he used was the one that had all these natural colors. That's one that we dyed. He had all these natural colors, and you can see them in here. But then we also added in the yarn that we dyed ourselves. So let me show you that project. This is part of that project. Let me just try to rest this down. We did our candle dipping, of course, and I just had it all on a stick in our homeschool room because I thought that would be nice. And this is only maybe a third or a quarter of the yarn that we have left. We use so much of it for other projects, but we did some natural dyes with this. We had tea, we had brown onion skins, we had red onion skins, we had avocado pits, and then the yellow here was with turmeric. So my son used a lot of like the more neutral tones here and the browns for his project here. So any of the yarn that was a little bit thicker, that was the yarn that we dyed. We didn't do the grays or the blacks or this lighter gray right here or even this one. And so it was a nice way to add in some of the yarn that we were able to dye into his project. So that was really great. And then my daughter did hers all with the yarn that we dyed. I'll show that to you in a second, but let me show you the candles that we dipped. They're still on, they're still attached. You just have to trim this off and then you can use them. We use 2 different kinds of beeswax. We use the Texas beeswax, and then my favorite beeswax is by Bennett Farms. It's Topanga quality beeswax, and it's by far my favorite beeswax ever. It smells amazing. I absolutely love it. And so we did candle dipping as part of our Colonial feast. We had rotisserie chicken and root vegetables as just to have like some old food. I say that in quotes, and corn and things like that. And then we had pumpkin pie. And so I really don't know how authentic that meal was, but I think in spirit, it's just a lot of fun to do a meal like that. And my children have always loved when we go into the kitchen and bring our history lessons alive, or any kind of lesson alive in the kitchen. And then, of course, we did our dyeing that day with our yarn, which was all wool yarn, and we used all natural materials to dye our yarn. And then we also were churning butter and doing some stitching, and we just kind of had a whole Colonial day. All right, let me show you the last couple of things for this unit. We have Colonial America, Spirited Sounds from Across the Sea to the Shores of the New Land. I love this CD. It has like some really great kind of festive songs that we would just play this in the background to start our homeschool day and just kind of set the stage for this kind of learning. But I have to say that it was less successful this time around versus the first time we did this unit. This was a huge hit the first time we did this unit, and this time it just didn't have the same appeal, but I still had this going on in the background when we would start our school day. My son also made some homemade DIY swords, and this can go with a number of units, not just the Colonial and Revolutionary War units, but we made these using some yardsticks from Home Depot and then some spray paint. So super easy to make and a lot of fun to use. Okay, the last thing I want to show you is the loom that my daughter used for her project. This one was super easy to use, and it comes with all the things that you need. However, this was a hand-me-down, so it was missing a couple of things, but it's okay. We still made it work. And this is the piece that she made. Hers was just one-sided, whereas my son's was double-sided, so it was able to be a bag. And hers was made entirely with the yarn that we dyed. And I did the I think I did the beginning part up till about right here, and she did the remainder of it, and I was so pleased with the way that she did it. I thought she was going to have trouble with the pattern, and while it ends up not being quite the same, I think overall it looks fantastic. I think she did a great job. I was actually pleasantly surprised. I thought she was going to need a lot more help than I expected, but she made hardly any mistakes. The only thing is that it got a little bit tight towards the middle, and I think if I had been a little bit more aware of what she was doing, I could have kept it a little bit straighter, but overall, it looks great. She loves it, and she uses it with like her little peg dolls and toys and things to play with. The other thing I want to show you is, like, because we're doing like a Colonial America unit, we pulled out all of like our old time toys and other things that we thought would work well for anything past 100 years ago, basically. And this was like a cool little slingshot that we picked up a few years ago. And then you can just use some little wooden balls in here. And my kids really loved playing with this, and they would just kind of build forts and then destroy them with little balls and whatnot. And the last thing I want to show you is our lesson plan, and this is more of a to-do list lesson plan. So I just wrote out a lot of the things that we wanted to do for this unit as well as our American Revolution unit, a lot of the books that we wanted to read and the projects that we wanted to do. And this just gives me like a roadmap for where we want to go for this unit, but primarily it was a unit in which I wanted to restrict the time, and we'll just work as much as we can during that time and do as many projects as we can, and then just close out the unit and move on, rather than looking at the whole list of things that we have and trying to get through them all. All right, so don't forget to check out the blog post that accompanies this video. That link is down in the description box below. If you want to see the other projects and tutorials that go along with this Colonial America unit study, you can tap on the screen right now. And don't forget that if you want to check out how our homeschool is progressing on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram at Pepper and Pine.